Thank you everyone for joining us. I will go ahead and call the May 6th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting to order. If you will all join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to welcome and introductions. I'll start with myself. I'm Tyler Woodlowski, the Planning Commission Chair, and move to today.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Mitchell and I'm a planning chair.
That's Stuart, Planning Commissioner. Stephanie Bailey, Planning Commissioner.
Paul Fogno, Planning Commissioner.
Jim Booth, Principal Planner.
Nick Bond, Community Development Director.
Connor Dahlquist, Associate Planner.
And then we'll take to Zoom, starting with Wayne.
I'm Wayne Wright, Planning Commissioner.
And Joe.
Joe Morrison, Planning Commissioner.
All right, thank you, everyone. Moving on to the audience comments. So we have a full house here and I'm sure we've got people on Zoom. So if anybody would like to say anything tonight about anything that's not on the agenda, so anything not related to the we ask you to come. Marks at 3 minutes. If there's anybody that would like to say anything not related to the agenda.
And it's not related to the public hearing, they could say something about other items on the agenda.
Thank you for that. Anyone on Zoom?
You are kind of.
So there, that.
Hey, Tyler. I can't hear you on Zoom.
We are showing your chair is muted, Tyler.
Can you guys still hear us? There you go. Okay, we're experiencing some technical difficulties, so it'll be just a second. I apologize.
Hey, planning commission, I'm just gonna come in. See you in 5 minutes.
So they're gonna hear you from your computer or through your.
Wayne, can you hear us? There. Can you hear us, Wayne?
I can't hear you. A little echoey, but yes.
We're recording.
Okay, apologies for that little interruption there. We were on the approval of the minutes. I had a motion and a second. Were there any opposed to the minutes as they're written? Any abstentions? Aside from me, I was not here. Okay, the minutes for the April 1st meeting have been approved. Moving on to the business items, 5A public hearing 2025 plan minutes.
Good evening, Jim Fisk, Principal Planner of the City of Port Richard. Tonight we'll be discussing the proposed amendments to the city's comprehensive plan for the 2025 update cycle. As required by the Port Richard Municipal Code, the Planning Commission must provide recommendations to the City Council before June 30th, 2025. At the February meeting, staff introduced the comprehensive plan amendment docket, which was approved by the City Council on March 11th. Since the Planning Commission reviewed the proposed amendment at its April meeting, the city's CEQA responsible official issued on April 10th. Which municipal code staff properly noticed tonight's public hearing, including mailed notice to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property for the proposed comprehensive plan amendment. Today, the Department of Community Development has not received any public comments regarding the DNS for this public hearing. The 2025 amendment docket includes 2 city-initiated text amendments and 3 applicant-initiated amendments, 1 text amendment and 2 map amendments. However, 2 of the items have been removed from further consideration. Those are the city-initiated amendment 1, which was the Sherman Avenue Stormwater Park Master Plan. This proposal was removed from the cycle because the plan is still under development and will likely not be finalized in time for this adoption cycle. It may be considered in future amendment cycle once complete. The second, which is no longer under consideration, is the applicant-initiated amendment for the whole avenue rezone. The applicant has withdrawn this amendment and is pursuing a site-specific rezone through a separate process. The following items remain for the Planning Commission to consider. There's 2 city-initiated amendments. The first I'll discuss corresponds with an applicant-initiated amendment related to the capital facilities element, specifically the water expenditures table. This amendment corrects an error in the water expenditures table where expenditure values for 2 water infrastructure projects, the Old Clifton Transmission and the 39580 intertie and booster were transposed. Updated cost estimates from the city's water system plan are also incorporated. The amendment ensures the city's financial planning documents align with infrastructure needs and long-range planning efforts. The second city-initiated amendment is the Transportation Improvement Program update. Transportation projects. It revises funding sources that reflects completed work. The updated TIP supports the city's ability to align with regional transportation goals and maintain eligibility for external funding opportunities. The applicant-initiated amendments, the first is the same as that water expenditure table correction. The second still under consideration is a map amendment. from industrial to medium density residential. This amendment applies to 13 parcels located southwest of Southwest Old Clifton Road and Wooded Parkway. The applicant proposes a comprehensive plan land use designation change from industrial to medium density residential, and a zoning map change from light industrial to residential 3 to enable future residential development. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive small and environmental constraint. Due to steep slopes and the presence of a stream, industrial development is impractical. Residential use is likely more feasible. The city has determined that sufficient infrastructure capacity exists to support the development on parcels. However, any future development must undergo standard review through the development activity application process. Requirements for vehicular access, critical area protection, stormwater management, and infrastructure improvements will be addressed in accordance with Port Orchard Municipal Code separately. The comprehensive plan serves as a policy guide and does not implement physical improvements. So at this time, the planning commission is asked to open a public hearing to receive public testimony on the proposed 2025 comprehensive plan amendments. Following the close of public testimony, the commission should deliberate and make a recommendation to the city council on the draft ordinance and its exhibits. City council action is tentatively scheduled for June 10th, 2025, following completion of the required 60-day comments review period.
Thank you, Jim. At this time, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing, starting with our in-person guests. So again, if you would like to say something, come up to the podium, start with your name and keep your remarks to 3 minutes. Name and address, sorry.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Barry Clement and I live at 16. Where the up on Dorothy Lane. Somebody answer that?
I don't know what the planning commission wants to do. We can take public testimony and then staff can respond to those afterward.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Do we want to pause while the Zoom reloads here? I'm not sure if is it still recording, Connor?
Yeah, those online are, the Zoom cart crashed again, so we're loading that back up. I should be up in a second.
Yeah, I couldn't hear any of that testimony at all.
supposed road that he's wanting to come through our land on. What is the exact plan, like, is he doing 20 feet over on each side of our properties? Plus, is he adding sidewalks, I mean, that's gonna cut a lot of our land away, plus it's gonna cut a bunch of like parking and stuff that we've created. As well as spend our own money on, and he's just gonna come and take that away. The other thing also, if he has all this land and he's wanting to build all these houses, why does he have to come through an eminent domain through our property? Why can't he just use his own properties? Cause he has multiple accesses in all his land that he created or that he has bought. Like, why does he have to come and try to take our land? So. That's the main thing, and also the water issue, like what Larry had said, if that's gonna force us to want city water and take our wells away, we don't want that. That's like, we should not be able. The property's been in our family for multiple generations, it should not be allowed to take it away from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Daniel Hill, 3507 Anderson Hill Road. Same situation as my brother, Matthew. They're looking to take away land from our side and Durfee side and to build a road. And I don't understand how one person can sign the easement rights over to take away our land. And then to people who's been there a very long time. They've been there 20 years. And they're just gonna increase the property value, and then they're gonna increase and maybe change the rezoning of all of our land. They're gonna take our well away because we can't be on the well anymore, and we have to be on the city. Absolutely, it's nasty. As a way to everybody else's land, when it's not right. And they don't even have the courtesy to stop when we're flagging them down in the middle of our road. It's our road. No, he zoomed right past us and all of our kids. And you guys might be okay with it, it's not okay.
Thank you for sharing.
All of this, and they're taking up our property. Where our houses are. They're gonna cut down all of the forages too. Like, it used to be an orchard where I lived. And I understand not all the trees are healthy anymore, I had to cut some of them down. But I still have healthy trees there. Like, please take that into consideration when you guys are thinking about actually letting an access road come through there and take up our. Something this, he's doing for profit. It's not.
Name, address, and 3 minutes.
Barbara
On the home, 1767 Southwest Turkey Lane. And we have a mobile home on the property where it's a private road, it's a dirt road. Kids can ride their bikes up and down. It's private, it's just a dirt road. Been there since 1998. To have someone just say they're gonna put a road through there. It's not safe for our families and our children to be going that want to ride their four-wheelers down the road. And be free to do what they want to on this land. That's been owned by this family for so many years. And we're just renters, but we live up at the end of the dirt road in this wonderful place that will be all of a sudden have a two-lane road going through it, the sidewalks. That's gonna impede on other people's land and take away that sanctuary that we have. So I invite you to have them find other places to go rather than through our properties. Where we're safe and we have our own privacy. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
My name is Wayland Palmer. I'm a land use planning consultant. My address is Post Office Box 6 in Port Orchard. I'm here representing Mike Diaz. It's his property, and the amendment proposal that we made is to go, as staff said, from an industrial land use to a residential land use. I'll tackle the access first. One of the reasons this property has been zoned industrial and undeveloped for approximately 18 years is because of lack of access. Now, the easement that goes from this property through to Anderson Hill Road has been in place for a very long time. Our point of view is that residential traffic is more acceptable than industrial traffic. If we had another option for access, we would have pursued it at this time. Maybe down the road, there is another option. We're not aware of what it is at the moment. And assuming the rezone is approved and Mr. Diaz goes forward with a subdivision proposal, in that process, we'll look for whatever other access options there might be. But this easement's been there for a very long time. It's not as improved as it would have to be to impactful to those properties, four properties. We certainly can see that, but industrial traffic has a greater potential impact to the properties between the second rezone and Anderson Hill Road. I've been associated with many projects over the years, and I know what truck traffic is like versus residential. Projecting a little bit to the subdivision phase, and that's another opportunity for these folks to weigh in on the approval of the eventual subdivision. But what we do anticipate is that the road would have to be brought up to as close to city standards as possible, which would mean at least 2 drive lanes of 10 feet paved, curb, gutter, and sidewalk on one side of the road, most likely on the north side of the road where the properties are that this easement crosses. At any rate, it is, no piece of property can be landlocked. State law says you have to have access, and sometimes you have to go to court to get that. But when you've got a piece of property that does have access, is to be as the easement rights of passage over those 4 properties. That is the access we have to work with at this juncture. Later, as I said, maybe there's an opportunity to pursue a different solution. We would prefer not to have to go that direction. If we could, but crossing that creek and the canyon is a challenge. And that's an approval challenge with state agencies that we don't have with the neighbors, and yet the neighbors have valid concerns. We're not here to minimize that in any way, shape, or form, but what we are saying is that if you had the opportunity to have residential traffic versus industrial traffic, I can guarantee you there's less impact on neighbors than residential traffic portends. We have submitted complete detailed descriptions of what could happen with the property if it's industrially developed versus what could happen with the property if it's residentially approved. The analysis that we provided in both the project narrative, response to the questions, permit to rezone, believe that we've provided a lot of good information for the city to weigh in on, and we think that so far, in fact, it's even on your agenda, is an indication that the city council at least thinks there's some credible aspects to our proposed rezone worthy of consideration for approval. If there are any questions, I'll field those now from the commission. And I'm happy to talk to any of the residents too about the emphasis.
Thank you. Out of respect for everybody else that might want to give testimony, I think we'll keep going. Anybody else wants to share?
Okay.
I'm curious, you said there was easement already in place. Every state document I've looked at shows no easement going through. In fact, as the road curves around, easement ends, even before that road. Is that true? No. This is the easement.
Sorry, you take a shot.
Bill, if you would like to have a conversation, you know, I'm gonna go out while
Keep moving with the testimony part, so that everybody gets a chance to speak. Is there anyone else in the chambers that would like to speak? Yes, sir. Name, address, and 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, my name is Bennett Skinner, and I live at 446. He didn't have access to that. Durfee is not the only access to his property. So it is not landlocked. It may be for whatever reason. There are other options. The site in question is running, like has been said, close to our wells. I've seen it, it's close to septic tanks and drain fields, that for setbacks and that would not be up to code. We are more than willing to work with anything other than having that road down Durfee. As far as the easement goes, it was never a county road. It was never a city road. It was a driveway built by me, by Mr. Durfee. And it was a handshake deal back 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, that we would work together to make sure and maintain that we had a road there for our properties. It wasn't meant for anything or anybody else. I don't know how, I have not been even contacted whatsoever. Nothing. I learned about this Monday when the surveyors were up on the land. And I got calls saying, what's going on, what's, you know, and I just told everybody, don't touch the survey stakes, you know, we'll take care of it and see what's going on. I understand this isn't a question or an answer, and I understand I don't have all the answers, and I understand you guys will have to work to get the answers. But I don't want this gentleman here also to lose in his investment, but it would be very detrimental to my property, the way it is run on Durfee Lane. Again, the water tables, I understand that, you know, McCormick sucks up a lot of the, unfortunately. And I know water is a premium. I know just to get him to sink a well in for how many? Somebody else can develop. And then we wouldn't even have the commercial, as he spoke, the trucks would not be even an equation. The only equation will become is if it becomes residential, they put a road down, then we will have the traffic. Because if it stays commercial, we won't have that traffic, period. So the big trucks coming down, and I work with big trucks, will not come down that way, is if it stays commercial. So I look forward to the process. I look forward to speaking more and learning more. I want to know what you guys are thinking so that we can say what we're thinking. Because it is generational property, you know, and like it or not, the renters that I have, at least the land to, we have worked through COVID, we have worked through the higher prices. They rent $400 a month for an acre of land. So you all know that is, I'm almost paying them to stay there because it is family. We're taking care of each other. I understand that it might have to go up with the new state laws of the property taxes and everything else, but that's something we get together and they understand that I try and keep my increases as low as possible so that people can survive, you know, until things get better. So I want to thank you for your listening, because you did look like you were listening and I appreciate that. Okay, and if you have any questions, I can give you my number, you can get a hold and we can talk or do what needs to be done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers that would like to speak? Hello, sir. Please start with your name, address, and then 3 minutes of testimony.
Larry Durfee. I live on 1800 Durfee Lane. I can't speak for the rest of the people behind me. But I can almost guarantee you that if you would just make the access road from Old Clifton to the property, it wouldn't matter to us if it was like residential, commercial. It wouldn't matter if it was residential. It wouldn't matter at all. What we're concerned about is the protection of our kids, our pets. Ben, the guy that's here before me, his dad and my dad made the agreement. I have the easement on my phone. And it was for nothing more than to make it so people could live there. For you guys to take and say that it's okay to put 100 apartments in the middle of the forest, and then to use a road, and I don't know if you guys have ever been on that road or if you've ever looked at it, but it is nothing more than a long, steep hill. It is very close to being as steep as Berry Lake Road is. And if you know Berry Lake Road, you know how steep that is. Right now, it's a dirt road. And it has potholes. And it's not perfect. But if you're coming down that road and I'm coming up, we have courtesy and respect for each other. Don't one of us will pull out and let the other one go by. We are not trying to stop development and progress. That property was there for a long time. Remember it's right now. I used to play there as a kid, and I go through the same woods that Mr. Diaz is talking about. Just give them a chance to allow themselves to live in a peaceful, quiet place. The guy behind me says that there's no other way. Well, you've got all that property and you can go to the industrial park where you go over your road. There's the gun range, there's the water tanks. They have roads. It could easily be made into a road, sidewalks, water that would work for the same purpose. You don't need to do this. You don't need to go up and down for feeling. I measured yesterday. You'll be within 3 feet of their house. I've got a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old. I don't, there's no doubt in my mind that you guys are gonna do this. Going down to, I've seen it with the home woods, I've seen it with the ridge, I've seen it over and over again. I've been on that land for almost 65 years. All these people want to do is just live in peace. And then you guys have the opportunity to say, fine, go ahead and do that. Just make the access road out to Old Clifton through the industrial park. The road is already there. The land is, that's fine. But you don't need to chop up yards, you don't need to chop up storage space. You don't need to make it so you're afraid. How many of you have gone up Anderson Hill Road and tried to take a left hand turn on Old Clifton? You know where the curve is. You know it the same as I do. They come around that road and they keep their rats tinkle about whether or not they're going to speak good. You think the McCormick Woods is done with their developments? No. They're going to go from Sunny Slope all the way to the highway. And when they go to the highway, The people who live there don't go out at 3 and they put up a 16. They go on Old Clifton. Old Clifton is already scary. I'll tell you how sad this is to even think about having that little field. Why don't you just put a green, yellow, and red light at the top? And then it's that. You're gonna allow somebody to build apartments. And they don't even live close to around here. And you think people in those apartments are going to give any kind of care at all to the people who live around here now? No. People who live on the left-hand side of Hendersonville Road going up the hill, and then that road. The people on the right-hand side, have not. Tell me how many of you do this for the go ahead. You do the speed limit? One, all the time? You do? When's the last time you saw a speed limit sign that said speed limit 60? And then you look at the fine print underneath the speed limit sign. It says, unless you really have. Yeah, that's a bad joke. But you told me how many people this doing. Go ahead, out of 10. Yes. 2, maybe 1. I congratulate you. Is there enough policemen to do the monitor people that speed? You know. So you know, I gave would really appreciate it if you would just go out full circle. You'd be right there at the highway anyway, and that's where they're all gonna go. If it was like industrial, there's a light industrial park. Instead of the highways get clogged, the roads would get clogged. How many apartments do you see now? Are going from Albertson to Sedgwick City, or City in Glenwood, and go over to Fred Mile. How long does it take you? You can't even get through. I appreciate you guys listening to me complain. And it's good to see somebody again. It's been a long time. It's really nice to see you. You know what I'm talking about. Please just leave this alone. That's all we're asking. There's options that you could do. I chased some of those logging trucks down the logging road. It's everything. I chased them on my bicycle. I don't see anything wrong with it. We have a real respectful, quiet, peaceful place. And we will not have that if it is ordered to be a paper. It will be the unwilling to.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, is there anyone else in the chambers that would like to speak tonight? If there was anybody else that would like to give testimony in the room, if not, we'll move it to Zoom if there's anyone that would like to share. So if you're on Zoom and you would like to give testimony tonight, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry, before we go, we got one more.
It's Tiffany Hill. I'm at 1751 Southwest Durfee Lane. And I just have a question because this gentleman's talking about easement. The people across the street from us, 1740, they might, from what I'm kind of seeing from years ago, I think what he's talking about. I'm curious if there's an easement on the right-hand side where he'd have to go into, on the Skinner's side, if there is easement that they would have to go into. Or, you know, being it's across the street and they're going in ours, is that considered still an easement? No, Skinner side did not allow them from my understanding. So I just have that question.
Okay, and we've got it documented, so when we get to the end, then we're able to respond. Thank you. Now we'll move it to Zoom. So again, if you're on Zoom and you'd like to give testimony, please raise your hand.
Troy will end, you're able to speak.
So we've got Troy, again, same rules, if you could say your name and address and then keep testimony to 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is actually Erin Durfee and I live at 1900 Southwest Durfee Lane. I'm the house on the very bottom and I am Larry Durfee's daughter. I'm the third generation Durfee on this road. And some of the kids that are playing here are my 2 children that live at the bottom. We also have a small homestead with chickens and a variety of other animals. I don't know how to put into words how detrimental it is
Sorry
to.
to cut you off before you get too far. We had a glitch with the Zoom, so we heard your name and address and then a pause and you came back. So if you could start over, that would be fantastic. Sorry.
No problem. Larry Durfee is my dad, and I am the 3rd generation Durfee to live on this road. My children, I have 2 children that are some of the children that were mentioned earlier. And I don't exactly know how to put into words how detrimental it is to keep the road how it is. I can't think of a single person on this road that it wouldn't negatively impact. And I've personally made sure that our road is like a small community that we can all wave to each other and talk to, and I can go next door and ask for help if I need it. And all of my neighbors know that we are that same kind of person or same kind of house. And the idea of not living in fear, but like the road being expanded into a 2-lane with sidewalk, all the extra foot traffic, all the extra residential traffic, it just seems like a nightmare. And it's terrifying that it's a possibility for this to continue to move forward. I also was not made aware of a lot of this until my dad reached out and made sure I knew when the meeting was. And he also took charge, kind of made sure that the neighborhood knew when to be here and how, like what was happening and how we needed to respond as a group. And the lack of communication has been alarming. Yes, things are filed, but there's a difference between filing through the government and the sense of community like I was talking about. I don't know how else I can be involved, but I just wanted to make sure I got up here and expressed with the utmost concern to please not change this road. And that's all.
We had another glitch with the Zoom, so I apologize, we didn't catch the end of what you were saying, but I think we got the gist.
Thank you.
Quite sure what is happening with Zoom tonight. I don't know if it's not used to this much volume. Yeah. All right, thank you, Sharon. If there is anyone else on the Zoom that would like to share, please raise your hand. Hopefully we can continue without any more glitches.
Yeah, I believe you're next.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. My name is Tavia Rice, and I live at 1740 Southwest Durfee Lane in Port Orchard. I would just like to say that, first of all, the Old Clifton Anderson Hill intersection is already a problem, and I don't believe that it could handle any more traffic, especially hundreds more people coming in and out of here. It's already a dangerous intersection. We also don't need more apartment buildings. Hundreds of units have gone up in the last couple years, all throughout Port Orchard. You need to consider the impact on wildlife it would have here because we actually have bears and deer and bunnies and everything here, and building more apartments would give them no place to go. Currently, it's very much the country where we're at. The impact on the school capacity, the high school is already over capacity with all the students there, and bringing more people here is just going to worsen the issue.
Hey, Tavia.
Yes.
So our Zoom cart crashed again, so we're gonna get it up. Do
We
you,
got your name and introduction.
but we
and
got your
address.
name and introduction if you want to begin again. I'm sorry about that.
Sure. Would you like me to start now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So I was just saying that the old Clifton Anderson Hill intersection cannot handle more traffic. It's already a dangerous intersection with the amount of people currently using it. We don't need any more apartment buildings. There's been hundreds of units that have gone up throughout Port Orchard just in the last few years. The impact on the school system, the high school is already over capacity with students. And then the impact on the wildlife. We have bears and deers and bunnies here. The bears already have no place to go, so building more buildings would be pushing them out more into the city, honestly. Um, Building multiple apartment buildings is incompatible with the existing neighborhoods. As you have heard, this is a quiet family community. It is not the city, and you're going to turn our small road into a busy city road. The houses along this road are also very close to the road. So building that 2-lane with sidewalks would have houses just immediately right up against it. I don't think the setbacks that all the houses here were required to do are adequate for a busy road like that. And please consider as you've heard, there's strong community opposition to this. It is a safe community, a quiet road right now where our children can play, and we're not worried about cars speeding down it. And if there were hundreds more people driving on it, it wouldn't be that way. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing.
John Medlock is next.
Can you hear me? Sorry about that.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is John Medlock. I live at 1740 Southwest Durfee Lane with Tavia. I was the lucky one to be able to build my house last here in 2020, so I can tell you how difficult it was to bring utilities to my site. I had to drill down over 150 feet from my aquifer to get any kind of pressure from my water. You're not getting any water out of our aquifer. You're going to have to bring utilities up from the road. So I don't know if the Anderson Hill has the utilities, but you're bringing utilities up at least 1,200 feet up our private driveway just to get to the end of my property. That's not to mention the new 100 units. Like Tavia mentioned, 100 apartment units is going to be about anywhere from 100 to 200 more vehicles on the road. So that's 200 more vehicles at Old Clifton Anderson Hill intersection. That's a problem. Already doing the road here, if you were at the very bottom of our driveway looking up the 1,000-foot road, that thing zigzags left and right, which means you're going to have to do a survey in order to get the proper lines anyway. You're going to have a problem getting your nice proper road without butting into the other people's property. It's going to become a nightmare. There's going to have to be a traffic impact survey. There's going to be a lot of things going on that I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. But Durfee isn't your access. You're going to have to go somewhere else for it. You're not getting utilities up this road. And if you are, that's not what you're talking about here. You've been talking about doing a paved 2-lane road, but you didn't tell these people you're going to have to do 6 months of utility work and then pave the road. That's a big deal. Sure, there's more, but that's about mine, is the logistics of actually doing the property back there. Is I think logistically you've got a big battle ahead of you, and it's going to be nothing but an inconvenience on the people who currently live here. It's about all I have to say. That I think everybody else kind of covered the rest. You know, our roads can't handle it. Old Clifton can't handle it. Our utilities can't handle it. the property back there it's been vacant. As the one gentleman in the in council there had said, he was representing Mike Diaz. Oh, if you don't have residential, you'll have industrial. And I mirror what Mr. Durfee said. We won't have industrial. We have nothing back there. I'm the end property. Nobody's getting past me. We've already had squatters in the woods. We've dealt with that. Those guys are gone. The property's done. There's no more easement. The easement was a personal agreement between us, and it's done. It's gone. Nobody else has access. I understand there's a state legislation that says that, no land can be landlocked, but then it also says that the person asking for access has to essentially recompensate all the people they're going through their land. So you got to recompensate 8+ people for digging through. Like, you are landlocked essentially, unless you go another way. You're not getting through here. That's about all I had to say. Thank you guys very much for doing this and taking the time to hear all of us.
Thank you for sharing, John.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Since we've gotten testimony from everyone who wished to give testimony, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I will move it over to staff first to address questions, and then we'll come back for discussion here with the council.
Okay, we've heard a lot of testimony tonight, and I want to recenter the discussion on the question that is before the Planning Commission right now, which is, should the property be industrial or residential? We are not considering a development application at this time, and if we were considering a development application, that is the time that we look at legal access, mitigation, water impacts, doing environmental review, etc. And so with that said, I don't have a whole lot of information about the easement or whether access to some future development is going to come through this easement. The city has expressed a willingness to allow access to be constructed through the industrial park. There are some challenges with doing that. It's probably a more costly route in terms of distance and the amount of regrading that might need to be done. But the city is not opposed to having some future access come through city property, but we are not at the point where we're considering a development. We are only considering the land use map change and the zoning map change from industrial to residential. So if the Planning Commission were to reject this amendment, the property would remain industrial, and the existing 12 lots could be developed as industrial and could utilize whatever legal access may or may not be present at this time. And if the Planning Commission approves the amendment, the property would go to a residential zoning designation, but they would still have to apply to develop the property. And we would consider that development on the basis of the impacts of that proposal. So in the code, chapter 20.04040 includes criteria for granting a comprehensive plan amendment. And the Planning Commission and City Council, they have no obligation to grant a comprehensive plan amendment. And in order to approve it, it has to meet the minimum criteria that are listed, which includes being consistent with the goals and intent of the comprehensive plan, being consistent with the Growth Management Act, and you have to weigh the proposal in light of the cumulative impacts of the amendments being considered. And then there's a list of site-specific comprehensive plan criteria. And one of them, and this one we have looked at, but it says shall be consistent with the land use and growth projections, which were the basis of the comprehensive plan, or subsequent updates to the growth allocations. And so if you remember back to our discussion of the 2024 comprehensive plan amendment, we have an employment target and we have a population growth target. And we did a buildable lands capacity report where we looked at the supply of employment land and the supply of residential land. And we have a huge surplus of residential land. We have a very small surplus of employment land. And so we did take a look at whether we would still have adequate capacity if this change were to occur. And so this would lower our employment capacity slightly. But it would not lower it so much that we would have insufficient land capacity to support our employment target that is in the countywide planning policies and which was the basis of our comprehensive plan. So we have taken a look at that. And I don't believe that that information was in the packet, but I know that it was, I think it was provided as part of the application. Okay, it was in last month's packet. So then the other criteria for site-specific comprehensive plan amendments are that the amendment be compatible with the neighboring land uses and surrounding neighborhoods and shall not cause adverse impacts to public services or facilities, or if applicable, other properties in the vicinity, unless such impacts are reasonably mitigated. And then the proposed rezone, it must also meet the rezone criteria in POMC 20.42. So I think that when you're looking at compatibility, I think you have heard a lot of testimony tonight from adjacent property owners, and the question then becomes, is residential development or industrial development more compatible with those adjacent uses? But unfortunately, we're not at the point where we're evaluating the impacts of development. And so the question is a very narrow one tonight. And ultimately, if a subdivision application were filed, that's going to go to the hearing examiner, who is going to look at our development codes and look at the criteria for granting subdivisions and determine whether or not this can be approved. And there may be valid concerns that cause mitigation requirements, or that cause a denial of a permit application. We're just not at that point yet. I think right now, if the rezone goes through, you've got 12 lots that are currently industrial, they would become residential. And so at a minimum, it's probably likely that 12 more houses would be built. And at the maximum, it would be whatever the zoning would allow once you've gone through all the zoning criteria and deducted open space requirements and setbacks and other issues to determine how many units could potentially be constructed. But we would then do environmental review and look at all of the criteria, the critical areas, and make a decision at a later date on that. Any other questions that were asked by the public that you had answers to, Jim?
We'll make sure this is capturing me on here. No, I think that covered everything. There was some discussion about eminent domain at the beginning of the comments, and I don't think the city has any desire to acquire any property on behalf of the development for this purpose. So that's all I would add.
Yeah, I don't believe that the city even has the right to do that in Washington. We can't go acquire an easement for the developer if they don't already have it. So anything that they need would have to be an arm's length transaction, and they would have to go and acquire it. And if the easement that they have is insufficient, then presumably the development would not go forward. If the easement that they have is sufficient, the development can go forward, or they can look at alternative methods of access, which could include coming through the industrial park, or there is a stream between Old Clifton Road and these 12 properties. They could build a bridge or a culvert across that stream to provide access, but that would be, of course, very costly. It's probably less expensive to come through the city property if we could reach an agreement to do that. But all of that would be worked out as part of a development application, and isn't something we can work out now.
Thank you, Nick and Jim. What I'm going to do next is actually ask Wayne if you have any comments on Zoom before we lose potentially Zoom again. So I ask you for your comments, and then we'll move it here to in the chambers.
I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the comments offered by the residents there. I haven't had a good look at the development proposal. One of the things that came up that piqued my interest was the location of existing wells in relation to that road and in relation to what that road expansion might look like. You know, if those wells are that close to that easement, and that easement is no good because of well protection zones, this might be a pretty simple situation where you need to find another access. So again, I haven't been part of the planning or evaluation of what's going on here. We've only been asked to look at, is this potentially better residential or industrial? But that access is going to be a real big issue. So if there are wells right next to that road, I'll just tell you right now from my own personal professional experience, that's a real problem for that development. So, all the other elements and crossing that creek, I've crossed thousands of creeks for the government and for the tribes. And yes, that's going to be a major undertaking and expense. So this piece of property is problematic. How to get there, best and for meeting the maximum value for the city and for the developer and the community is going to be the real challenge of the people working on this development. So I would encourage everybody to take a good hard look at all those elements as we go forward. And I don't know, are we trying to make a decision on that tonight? Because there's some new information that the Planning Commission never had in front of us right now, as far as the wells and the elements associated with the development. I have never seen that. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Wayne. And I will move it down to Joe if you'd like to add anything.
My laptop's off.
Aim your voice at my laptop so they can hear you.
Aim your voice at your laptop. Okay. My heart goes out to the property owners who are here. I also am mindful of Mr. Diaz's property rights as a property owner in the area. Not an easy discussion. Wayne, if you can hear me, you know, what's before us is a rezone. All these questions of access, easement, whether you're going in through the industrial park, Old Clifton, or you're relying on Durfee Lane and whatever agreements have to be made, we are a long ways away from that as we are from permitting a subdivision. Question before us today is, are we recommending in the comprehensive plan amendment for a property owner who's requested a rezone, are we encouraging that, right? That's what's in front of us. I'll say that I actually looked into this a little bit because I have an interest in industrial land and seeing industrial land utilized. And from what I could tell, it's very difficult to utilize that industrial land. So a question, can I ask Nick a question?
Yeah.
As part of this? So if we rezone this, I'm taking it, the only permitted use will be residential. It's not like there's a industrial residential mix that could be utilized, correct?
Correct. There is a zone called industrial flex that is not proposed here.
Okay.
This is an R2 designation section. And
I answered that on the wrong microphone, so I will say it again, but to answer your question is we do have an industrial flex zone that allows residential and industrial development, but that's not what is proposed here. What is proposed here is a change from the industrial designation to the residential designation in the comp plan with a zoning change from industrial, light industrial to residential 2.
Right.
I would add that the applicant requested R3, but which does allow apartments. R2 does not allow apartments. The industrial flex zone is actually in the commercial designation.
Okay.
It does not allow detached houses.
Right. So the requested rezone has no potential for apartments if it goes through, right? It's single family housing, townhomes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, middle housing is allowed. It depends how you characterize apartments. I think we allow up to 6, is it 4 or 6 units in R2 under the proposed middle housing?
In the proposed middle housing bill or ordinance, the R2 will allow 4 dwelling units per lot. But apartments are not allowed in R2. They are allowed in R3, and the apartments do not have a maximum cap on the number of units.
Right, but this proposed rezone is for R2.
The way the applicant submitted it is R3.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
R3 is apartment. So does that mean there can be apartments?
That means that there could be apartments, yes, if you were to designate R3, though I don't know that, I think the planning commission would be using our own.
Yes, that means that there could be apartments if it was designated R3, but the planning commission recommendation could be to approve the residential change, but do R2 rather than R3 if you felt that that was more compatible, and if the applicant was willing to revise their request.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm not sure whether we're there yet with making a different recommendation from what the property owner submitted. I will say that I think it's important that Port Orchard builds housing. I think you can expect beyond what Mr. Diaz's interests are to see more traffic on Old Clifton and Anderson Hill. I think that's going to happen regardless. And I think it's really important that our community builds housing so that people of all income levels can afford it. So those are my comments, and I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Do you want to speak at my laptop so they
Oh,
can hear you
sure.
on the Zoom?
So no microphone, laptop.
Use this, yep.
Okay. So I just want to first thank everybody that came tonight. This is not common for Planning Commission to have this level of engagement. And every time that I've participated in public hearings and we have high levels of engagement, it means that this is important to people. And I understand it. I also feel the same sort of level of concern that people have just living where I currently live. I mentioned when the gentleman in the back was speaking about the fact that I do go the speed limit on Old Clifton. It's because I actually live in McCormick Woods and I hate that people are going 50, 60 miles an hour down that street. It's that road is dangerous. There's animals, there are people. I've seen kids in golf carts on Old Clifton, and it's just terrifying to think how dangerous that is. And the idea of adding even more development in that area that is already growing because of the continued growth of McCormick Woods, I can understand why that would give people pause. That said, it has also been mentioned tonight that there is this idea that we do have to balance those concerns with the rights of a property owner. I feel like there's been a lot of things brought up this evening that are interesting, including the idea that, you know, there's alternate access points that maybe haven't been considered. A lot of the discussion tonight has been centered around Durfee Road, and that's not even something that we're really discussing tonight. We're just talking about the rezone, but I can understand where people are going in their brain of like, this is just step one of something that could be problematic for folks who live in the area. And so I think for me, one of the things, if I had my personal opinion, is that we push this amendment off to allow for further discussion with community members to be able to weigh in about what would they rather? Because I think there is definitely some legitimacy in talking about would you rather that be industrial potentially if it does get developed, or would you rather it be residential? You know, to just try to make sure that we have those discussions, because it sounds like development's probably going to happen one way or the other, no matter what, at some point, whether that's industrial or residential. And I just think I would like to have some more discussion around that with people who really care about this issue. I understand, as someone who lives here in Port Orchard too, that sometimes you don't know about something until, you know, the little yellow sign goes up or a surveyor appears on your land. And so the fact that people are aware of it now, I think really invites a really excellent opportunity for continued conversation. And I would like us to push this off if we can to facilitate that opportunity.
Thank you. Annette, anything to add?
I just want to commend all of you on your little pocket of community that you've built. I think that's amazing. I do, what I thought I hear though is you're okay with development, but you just really don't want it on your road. You want to keep that piece that you have going on. And I do feel that development is going to happen. Maybe not this piece of property, but in Port Orchard, we are growing at a very quick rate. And anyway, and I would like a little more time also on this. And thank all of you for coming tonight.
Good. It made a difference.
I agree, I would.
All right, I have a few things to say upon this matter. One of them being more professional oriented, the other one being personal. In terms of my goals here on Planning Commission, ever since I was appointed, they've been more to look at development and how we develop both residential, commercial, industrial, all those sort of zones in a smarter way than we have been over the last decades, last centuries, and really start to view transit and development and industry in sort of a holistic sense. One of the things I've been wanting to focus on ever since I've got here, and this will lead back to, I promise, the situation at hand, is being smart about building the city within the city, instead of just constantly focusing on this expansion outward. And I do agree with my fellow commissioners in the sense that this development will happen, some development, not this development in particular, but development in general will happen of more housing complexes, more industry, maybe commercial zones, more will happen, right? However, it does not necessarily have to be in these specific spots, which leads me to my personal stake in something similar. I grew up in Alpine Lake Road, out in Lake Flora area, out in the county district area. Dirt road, same as you guys have. Very, very tight-knit community, same as you guys have. And if somebody were promising to build a road right through my area, my neighborhood where I had grown up, I would be as furious as you folks are. I can totally understand that. Especially if through that process or through that building, I was not consulted. I was not given proper notification. I was not told. I would be as animated about it as you guys are. I can completely understand that. And while I do understand that more development will happen within Port Orchard, as it should, Port Orchard's expanding and it's going to help us in our economy to expand with that. I think that we can view this development in a much smarter sense. As you folks have pointed out tonight, and I do agree with you when you say that more apartments, housing in that area will just increase traffic in that area. That I view because it is not integrated very well with the transit system that we have in Port Orchard. It's a very separate area. Both of Anderson Hill, McCormick Woods, Old Clifton, that whole area is its own little pocket. We've had more development in that area, but one of the reasons why people speed down that area. One of the reasons why there's so much traffic down in that area is because it is very car dependent, because it is just not integrated properly. When this issue came up on, when the issue of rezoning came up on the packet, and I had a chance to read through it, my concern from changing it from residential from industrial to residential was environmental. In the sense of there is the creek right there. Any sort of industrial development that would happen would obviously impact that, especially considering any industry is going to require trucks, chemicals, different things like that. That's already a critical area. And so that was where I was coming from in terms of viewing it. That's where I would say that in that case, if we were to choose between industrial and residential building there, then I would prefer residential. I brought that up in the last planning commission meeting, I believe. In terms of that preference being there. As of right now, as Nick had pointed out, we're just reviewing the zoning, the rezoning in and of itself. When the issue of development of that area into apartments, fourplexes, condos, houses, whatever they might be, when that comes up, the ideals I've expressed tonight will absolutely factor into my decision making in terms of how that potential residential district would be integrated with Port Orchard transit system in terms of the current roads that we have. I think that needs to be taken into consideration, and I promise you guys I will take that into consideration. Absolutely. Again, I empathize with your feelings here tonight. It's completely valid. I think one thing I've seen here, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a little long-winded, but one thing I've seen here is a clear communications breakdown, a clear failure of communications, a clear example of processes going through without the proper people who are being involved being notified. And I think that it's kind of a shame that you guys got the information about it so soon. I appreciate you guys coming down here. This is, as my fellow commissioners have pointed out, this is why we do it. We want to be here for you guys. We want to be here as one of you guys, right? And to be able to hear that testimony. And I think that's in the future with all parties involved, that's clear, open, present communication, and throughout every part of the process needs to be the utmost concern. And lastly, I'll say that as a lifelong Port Orchard resident, outside of Port Orchard, but I went to school here. I have jobs here. You know, I live within Port Orchard now. I think that it has always been a part of Port Orchard that we increase development and that we have new people coming in all the time, but that we also shouldn't let the current residents, the ones who have been here for decades, fall by the wayside because we're trying to make room for new people. I don't think that it should be the focus of the Planning Commission or the Department of Community Development or the City Council. We need to focus on the people who live here as well and make sure that their concerns are taken into consideration. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So just a recap, what we've talked about in the public hearing were a few different amendments to the comprehensive, or a few different pieces to the comprehensive plan amendment, including updates to the capital facilities element, the transportation improvement program, and then the amendments where we talked about the rezone. So that being recapped, I am open to hearing a motion. And the motion could be to recommend adopting all of the pieces that we talked about, some of the pieces, or none of the pieces.
I motion that we go for the first two pieces, but the tip and then sorry, my brain is not working. Yeah, the capital facilities. I'm fine with those. I would like to push off this rezoning at this time, just to again facilitate further conversation.
Thank you.
So the way that our comprehensive plan amendments work.
So the way that our comprehensive plan amendments work is that we're allowed to amend the comprehensive plan once a year, except in special circumstances. And so we can't bifurcate the different applications and move some forward without moving the others. So if you want to take more time with this, you can continue this discussion to our June meeting, keeping in mind that we're going to have a public hearing at that meeting on the middle housing code, and that's also a pretty heavy topic, and we have a June 30th deadline. But if you'd like to think about it, you can reach out to our staff between now and next month and ask any questions that you might have. We can certainly do that. If you're looking to have additional public process surrounding this, we're probably going to have to push this into July. There are other issues with that because we do need to adopt our transportation improvement program in order for other things to fall into place in terms of getting various projects done. So I think if we can wrap the discussion up in June, that would be an ideal situation if you'd like to take more time, but we can't actually recommend two of the amendments and not the third one, and then bring that back later. They all have to kind of move together.
I recommend that we table it all until June to give folks that additional time to discuss, and would encourage everybody who has a real stake in this to please send me an email. I believe my email's on the website, correct? I believe so. I just don't know it off the top of my head. But I would love to hear more from folks, particularly on the question of, well, I guess this is a long amendment. So let's go for the amendment and then I can add that in.
Before we go there.
Yeah.
If you're looking to take additional
Time. Sorry, Nick.
All right, if you're looking to potentially take additional testimony, I would recommend that you keep the record of tonight's hearing open until our June meeting and let people submit written testimony. And then there's an email address for the whole planning commission. So I would recommend that people send their emails to the planning commission as a whole so that everybody gets copied on it. You can reply. I don't know if we want a whole lot of exchange if we're keeping the record open, but I think
that's fine.
I think letting people make their testimony in writing is helpful. And then if people have new thoughts based on what they've heard tonight and based on our discussion, they can more thoughtfully write their written comments.
Before I put forth that motion, then let me just ask everybody who has come here tonight and folks who are concerned about this to submit that written testimony, and keep in mind kind of again what we're really considering tonight, which is whether or not we're going to rezone this from commercial to, from industrial to residential. And the question of what would you rather? Because I think that that is, unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to get away from having something happen at some point. And ideas for how we might be able to do that. Nick, real quick, is there like any way to move forward with something like this while also maybe even putting in something that says that there has to be public process around like the access? Because that does seem to be the primary concern here for residents who showed up tonight is Durfee Road. And that there is the potential for access in other places. I just want to make sure that we're not trapping people in, like that we're not doing something up here that makes people feel like we have trapped them into an either or situation. I want to do what we can to try to help folks keep what they want while also giving the property owner their ability to use their property.
I don't believe there's a way to conditionally grant a comprehensive plan amendment. You're either changing the zoning or you're not. And so, but there is a built-in public process with any development that were to occur. If somebody comes in on one of the lots and applies to build a single family home, we don't do public notices for that. If they come in and apply for a subdivision, or they trigger SEPA review because they've crossed the threshold for the number of units they're proposing, which is currently 5 units, but it's proposed to go to 9 units in the middle housing code revisions. If more than 9 homes were proposed, they would get a notice of environmental review under SEPA. And so there is that process for doing review. And if through the environmental review process, we determine that we need more information, we can ask for reports or other items. And anytime you have development with private roads, it is the burden of the applicant to demonstrate that they have a legal right to use that road. And there's another subdivision in town I can think of that's been they've tried to get it approved multiple times, and because of the private road easement and the lack of any sort of road agreement, adding more units to that road based on the way the easement was written has been a roadblock that they haven't been able to overcome. And so as part of an application for a subdivision, the applicant has to demonstrate that they have a legal right to use that road and to add units to the road. And it depends how the original road easement was written. And some of them are very broad and don't have any constraints, and others have undivided interests in, or will have a divided interest in a road where it's like you have a 1/7 ownership, and then how much people pay in terms of dues for road maintenance can get very convoluted when you have one lot that gets subdivided 4 ways and one that gets subdivided 8 ways. And ultimately that can be a more difficult situation where if you're trying to propose a subdivision.
So again, I would just encourage folks, I think I would like to have the record stay open and encourage folks to email the planning commission and at the main email, and just keep that question in mind of like, if this is going to happen, which thing do we really want to try to focus on? So that we can try to find this middle ground that will allow all of this to happen. So
that's your motion?
My motion is that we table it all and we keep the record open through June to give people that opportunity, and then revisit this in June.
Do I hear a second?
Can I ask for a quick clarification ask for quick clarification on something in particular? June 30th is the deadline for the 25 comp plan amendment, correct?
June 30th is the deadline for the planning commission to make a recommendation to the city council.
Got you. Okay. And when is the city council set to?
Right now it's tentatively scheduled for June 10th, but they occur every 2nd and 4th Tuesday unless it's moved or otherwise canceled.
Okay. And this amendment, if not decided upon, would that jeopardize the 25 comp plan amendment or the comp plan in general?
Yeah, the planning commission is required by code to make a recommendation of the city council before June 30th. So you'll have one more shot at this.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you schedule a special meeting, which you could choose to do if you needed more time to discuss it.
Wayne, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. Again, a little bit more on the clarification element. If my memory serves in looking at this proposal, the topographic conditions at the site do not really portray good use of industrial site. There's so much grading and earth movement to be required to put some kind of an industrial facility there. That's what sort of triggered this whole thing, if I remember right. And in thinking it through a little bit more, you know, the things that I know about, there will be a lot of review of all the elements discussed by the current residents to come. There has to be. There will be a lot of environmental review, the wells, the access points, all that. But it gets right back down to what can happen on that property and what's the best use of that property. If I remember correctly, the topography is such that industrial use is really kind of ridiculous. It's too darn steep to do it, and it would cause more problems and pain. So if anything's going to happen on that site, it's going to probably be residential. The question then becomes, what is the residential we want? Now, I heard some comments, R3 is what they've asked for. R2 makes it a little bit more palatable to what I understand is going on out there now. So one of the other options we could do is approve this thing with an R2 scenario, assuming the applicant would accept it, and then move it forward into the review of the details with the community to come. That gets this thing moved, because I think it's, as we've all said, this development's going to happen. The question is, what do we want it to be? And we don't want to get the cart before the horse and looking at all the details before the details are required, because we don't have a plat application. This is a rezone. So I think if I were to recommend a motion, it would be to take it to an R2 level and approve the whole thing, all three elements, but with an R2 residential versus R3 to be more compatible with the community. I don't know if that's in our purview or not. So that's where I've been thinking, listening to everybody talk. Does that make sense, staff? Jim, I see you nodding. I think maybe I'm on the right track, but I think that gives everybody time to work this thing through without delaying our needs to do an amendment to our comp plan. That's what I want to say.
That can be considered, and the applicant can clarify his interest in what rezone the applicant really wants if we table this, right? For us to assume R2 is the answer and then make that motion and vote on it here today, like we can just give this another month if that's going to be the case, you know? And yeah, we're in discussion right now.
Is there a motion on the table?
Not at the moment. No, there is. There's a motion. to
There's
table.
mine.
There's a motion. to
There was
table.
my motion to
Yeah.
table. I can withdraw that if we're still discussing this. I want to make sure that all the commissioners have their opportunity to say what they would like. I tend to agree that, you know, I don't want to make the assumption that the applicant wants this to be an R2. But I think if we do table it, we give them the opportunity to, again, work all this through. I would be more likely to entertain an R2 than I think I would anything else, just given what we've heard tonight, so. So where are we? Where are we?
I think we're at
I'm good at continuing with my motion of tabling to give more opportunity, but we can vote that down.
With consideration to the comp plan deadline sort of coming up, I would tentatively agree with the tabling it, just as long as, you know, we're able to have that discussion and it just doesn't end up in discussion limbo, that we do move it forward. So move something forward eventually, whether it's a disapproval or approval, right?
Can I ask one final question before we move forward? Sorry, I'm just trying to think things through my brain. So if we did move, let's say in June, we did move forward with the R2, that would require the applicant to come back and say, I want to do an R2. Is that correct?
Well, they could choose to do that, or they could leave their application as is and provide written testimony saying, no, we want R3 or nothing. But they can.
But then does that put us in a position of where we kind of have to approve it or not? Because it's attached to
The
the
fact that
other
you're thinking
things.
about that in that direction, I can talk to our city attorney and confirm whether you have the discretion to go with the approval of the comp plan amendment, but with a different recommendation, with a different zone, or whether your only recourse is to deny. I'll have to check with them to see whether it would have to be a voluntary change by the applicant in order for it to go R2, or whether you can make a recommendation that differs from what they've applied for.
I would appreciate that, just so that we as a planning commission aren't in a place of where like, we have to meet these statutory deadlines, but also at the same time, we want to make sure that this process gets the due thought that it needs, so.
Okay.
My motion remains to table.
So we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
So I have a question before we go any farther. I just want to put out there that I'm friends with Larry Durfee, and I don't know if I can vote or not vote or what I need to do. If it matters, doesn't matter.
I think on a motion to table, that is a fine thing to
Okay.
vote on. If you want to recuse yourself in the final vote, that's up to you.
Okay, no, I'm good.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling this to June?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, we will table this decision for June.
And Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify for the public that if you do want to submit written comments, you can email planning@portorchardwa.gov. And you can also mail those comments to the Department of Community Development at 216 Prospect Street in Port Orchard 98366. And if you have any questions, you can call the planning department and talk to Jim or myself.
Is there a chance I can make an observation before we move off this topic? Or are we done? What's your preference, Chair?
I'll hear your observation.
So it feels like there have been some misunderstandings tonight, including the use of eminent domains, what's planned in this area, whether apartments are going in, what the preferred access is. There's an extra month here to maybe have some communication. I would encourage all the property owners, including Mr. Diaz, to have that communication, right? Whether wells are going to be affected. All of this came up tonight when we're just looking at a reason. So I think that there is potential, I'm hoping, that the next time we meet, maybe some of these questions are answered and some concerns are eased by what the applicant is proposing. And I hope to hear from you in person next month as well. Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on to business item 5B, a discussion over middle housing model ordinance development regulations. That is Jim.
I think I'll perhaps let it clear out for the sake of the audio. Wayne, can you hear me? Okay. Unless you want to stick around for the next item on the agenda, middle housing ordinance.
The meeting's gonna continue.
Okay, well, I just want.
Okay, interim adoption of the Department of Commerce middle housing model ordinance. Tonight, staff is presenting. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. I can hear myself. Tonight, staff is presenting a summary of proposed amendments to the Port Orchard Municipal Code to implement state housing legislation. These amendments respond to the requirements of recent state legislation addressing middle housing, accessory dwelling units, and off-street parking standards. These changes are necessary to meet the state's compliance deadline of June 30th, 2025, and are consistent with the implementation of the 2024 comprehensive plan. Since your last review in April, the draft ordinance has been submitted to the Washington State Department of Commerce for the required 60-day notice, and a SEPA determination of non-significance was issued on April 29th. The proposed approach uses Commerce's model middle housing ordinance as guidance to achieve Tier 3 compliance, while allowing flexibility to develop a permanent Tier 2 framework later this year. Amendments span multiple chapters of the development code, including updates to zoning regulations, definitions, use and density standards, building and design standards, parking, unit lot subdivision, and environmental review procedures. One policy change is the adoption of a unit-based density, which allows multiple building types on a single lot so long as the number of units does not exceed the district's maximum density. For instance, in the R1 district, up to 2 dwelling units may be allowed per lot, including the potential for 2 ADUs on a lot with a detached house. The R2 district allows up to 4 units per lot, inclusive of ADUs, enabling combinations like triplex with an ADU or 2 duplexes. The R3 district allows up to 6 units per lot with no cap when units are within an apartment building type. To support varied ownership options, the amendments introduce a new unit lot subdivision process in POMC 20.87, allowing multi-unit developments to be subdivided into fee simple lots. All lots, parent lots, must meet base dimensional standards, typically 5,000 square feet for lots fronting a street, or 3,000 square feet where they are alley loaded. Changes to the ADU standards include expansion of allowable unit counts and increased size limits. Owner occupancy requirements have been removed by previous City Council and Planning Commission actions. Off-street parking requirements have been adjusted to comply with Senate Bill 5184, reducing or removing minimums for residential uses. To improve clarity and usability of the code, POMC 20.32 building types now includes consolidated design standards for each residential type, such as transparency, entry orientation, blank wall treatment, while ensuring that middle housing is not subject to more restrictive standards than detached houses. POMC 20.139 residential design standards has been simplified by eliminating subjective review criteria. Garage standards are now located in POMC 20.124, and facade requirements are organized as a flexible menu of options. The amendments also streamline overlay district standards. The McCormick Village overlay has been simplified to align with the new building types and middle housing regulations. The Downtown Height Overlay District has been renamed and expanded as the Height Overlay District, now applying citywide. This change consolidates all height overlays, with the exception of the View Protection Overlay District, into a single section with consistent height measurements and enhanced mapping. These amendments and the draft ordinance are presented tonight for your review and comment. Staff requests that the Planning Commission schedule a public hearing for the June 4th meeting. Following that hearing, the commission will be asked to forward a formal recommendation to the City Council. After adoption of this interim ordinance, staff will begin work on a permanent tier two regulations. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Jim. So this is the public hearing that we're gonna have at the June meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I will again start with Wayne online. If you have any comments you'd like to add or anything you'd like to say regarding this, hopefully we don't lose Zoom.
Yeah, so far it's doing pretty good now. I went through it.
Hang on, Wayne. Oh, sorry.
Let me when. Okay. I went through the document pretty carefully a couple times, actually. There's a lot of red line and it is a bit hard to follow when you want to look at all the different pieces. So I got a couple of global comments that it would help tighten it up in the next rendition. Taking out some of that red lines. There's some photos that are crossed out, and then the supplanted ones are all redundant down in the 3-plexes, 4-plexes, 5-plexes. Seems like the same picture is being used, and it really confused me as to what we're trying to say. And none of the descriptions in those sections were referred back to. I think it would be a good thing to do is to go back to the definition of what we're talking about, rather than just show pictures and jump into tables that some were blank and some had details. I found that confusing to me. And I'd like to see that tightened up to make it easier. I found a couple of inconsistencies with the way ADUs were discussed. And it may just have been a bit of semantics about within or attached as far as an ADU on an existing home. So I saw some of those things. I can put that all in writing for you, Jim. That'd be probably easiest. But this is a beast, a bit of a beast to get through, and I appreciate the effort you put into it. It took a lot of time. But if I could get a clean copy that isn't redlined even, I think that'd be easier for me to look at now. So, but that's what I got to say. It's got to be done, and I know what he did, and he did the best he could. I'd just like to see it tightened up in some places.
Wayne, just so you know, Connor is working on updated graphics, and so that should make it into the final version that be considered a public hearing. But yeah, I welcome any comments. There's a lot there.
Yeah, the other comment that I had was on the height overlay district downtown. The old map was not crossed out. I got that. That's easy to figure out. I would think that you could easily put in the heights rather than saying HOD 4 or 1 or 2 or 3. Just put the range of heights that's allowed on the map so that people can look at the map and see what that HOD 1, 2, or 3 really means. It's a pretty simple metric. I think you can add right to those maps and make it more easy to interpret the maps rather than having to go figure out what HOD 2 is for that blue polygon. It just seems like that we could tighten that up. I'll put all that in writing to you guys and get it out here in the next couple, well, by the end of the next week. How's that sound? Thanks.
Thank you, Wayne. And I'll actually start on this side. So Paul, if you have anything to add, and then we'll work our way down this way.
Yeah, I'm not sure what microphone I'm, so I'm gonna turn them all on. Yeah, the density, it definitely is a lot, but I appreciate also that it's a lot of what we've already seen over the last few months and what we've been working on for a whole lot of months. And in terms of this middle housing ordinance, I think it's been a positive ever since we started doing it. And I think that as it sits right now, I would more than happily approve it if that was what we were here to do. But you know, as of right now, any sort of grammatical or clarification errors aside, I think that this is a lot of work that's been put into it, mostly by DCD, but also a little bit by us. Sure, why not? Yeah, as of right now, I'm totally okay with it.
Thank you, Paul.
From me, I will be less complicated on this one, so good for next month when we get that opportunity.
Nope.
All right, so we will be looking at that next month at the June meeting. And moving on to item 5C, discussion of the Planning Commission schedule for July 2025.
Yeah, I think this item, if I recall correctly, June 4.
Is it the 4th of July is when the meeting falls?
It is.
Yeah, the 4th of July is, oh no, that's August. The 4th of July is the Friday prior. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody would be here on Tuesday, the 1st. And if we didn't have a quorum, we could consider rescheduling.
So you're not trying to call a special meeting in one individual?
No, and in fact, we are likely going to be canceling both August and September because we have, Jim and I have a conference to attend at the September meeting. I'll be gone for the August meeting, but it's possible a meeting could still go forward in August. But we would like to have the July meeting, assuming that we have business to discuss. We just wanted to make sure that everybody was going to be in town that week because sometimes attendance is a challenge.
Can't speak for anybody else, but yeah,
I'll be here.
I have no plans to leave.
I will too.
I should be around.
So it sounds like July 1st is not a problem. Oh,
Wayne indicated he'd be here.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes, I'll be there.
So we're good for July 1st. Most of us should be here. 5D, the director's report. That's to you, Nick.
Yeah, my only report this evening, I did want to share that the Puget Sound Regional Council did certify our comprehensive plan a little over a month ago. And so I think only 25% of the cities within the Puget Sound at that time had been certified. So we were in the first batch of people to get approved. And so that speaks to everyone's hard work. And I think we also had fewer challenges given that we had tackled a lot of housing issues sort of we were a little ahead of the curve compared to some jurisdictions, and they had a lot more work to do and also a whole lot more discontent within their community over that work. So good job, everyone. And I'm pleased to report that that is now officially wrapped up.
Fantastic. Well, tonight was one heck of a meeting, and if there's nothing else we'd like, oh,
I have just one ask. Would it be okay or possible, I guess is a better word, that when we move something forward to the council, that you report back to us at our next meeting, whether they said nay or yay, or if they changed it up, just kind of so we can just be
Track.
updated what's going on and, you know, if we do good work or we didn't do good work or, you know, would that be possible?
Yeah, definitely. I think we can put that as a standing item on the agenda.
Well, actually, the director's report is for that, but so far this year, the planning commission hasn't forwarded anything to the city council for action. So has been nothing to report back on your actions thus far this year.
Okay, thank you.
all right, anything else? Yes, Wayne.
I do have a question. Just, can someone, maybe Nick or Jim, could you give us an update? Where are we with the critical areas update?
That's likely going to come forward in July, because we've been so busy with middle housing and our other deadlines that we have until the end of the year to complete that. So we're working on it with our consultant, and we're ready to share a new draft when we have a meeting after we get through middle housing and comp plan.
Okay, perfect. I was just curious where we were. Thank you.
All right, then I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you guys all in June. Thank you, everyone.
You got to use your